We were riding in the cemetery. On my father's grave, Johnny and me.
They're coming for you.
Stop it!
Look, there comes one of them now.
And then this man started walking up the road. And he grabbed me! He grabbed me! And then Johnny came and he ran and he had fought this man. I got so afraid. I ran.
You don't know anything about me. You don't know who I am.
I know exactly who you are, Amy.
"32 found footage horror movies, 7 levels. Nothing is scarier than seeing the horror unfold right in front of your eyes in real time. We will start with the more well-known found footage movies and descend into some of the most obscure, messed up movies ever made. Prepare yourself for some seriously disturbing scenes. Let's start at the beginning of the iceberg. Level 1. Paranormal Activity franchise. From the first second of Paranormal Activity, you never feel like you're watching a horror movie. You're peering into someone's private hell. The core story of the franchise revolves around two sisters, Katie and Christy, who are haunted by a demonic entity known as Toby. The films use various recording devices to capture supernatural occurrences in a found footage style, but the core idea is always the same. A family encounters paranormal phenomena on camera.
Something else is. The door's freaking moving by itself.
Oh my god.
The original movie follows Katie and Micah, a couple documenting strange occurrences in their San Diego home. Doors slam on their own, footprints materialize in baby powder, and people are forcibly yanked out of their beds. But the real horror in the movie lies in what you don't see: a demon, later named Toby, stalking them through nights that grow increasingly violent. The movie leads us to a horrifying final shot of Katie standing motionless for hours before snapping into feral violence, confirming that she has been possessed by whatever has inhabited their home. That single movie created an entire franchise. The franchise's timeline spans over 30 years, with events occurring from 1988 to 2021, but every passing movie started jumping timelines to explore Toby's origins. Paranormal Activity 3 rewinds all the way back to 1988, revealing Katie and her sister Christy's childhood pact with the demon, setting up the first movie. But later entries introduce cursed bloodlines, time portals, and a coven of witches. While the first few installments received generally positive reviews, later entries garnered mixed to negative reactions. Despite this, the franchise has been financially successful, grossing over 30 times its overall budget. And all because a $15,000 budget and a single camera terrified people. The Blair Witch Project. When The Blair Witch Project premiered in 1999, it wasn't just a horror film. It was a cultural reckoning. Presented as recovered footage, the film follows three student filmmakers, Heather, Mike, and Josh, who vanish while documenting the legend of the Blair Witch in Maryland's Black Hills Forest in 1994. But as they delve deeper into the forest, strange events begin to unfold. They lose their map, hear unsettling noises and screams at night, and discover eerie stick figures and rock piles near their campsite. By day, they grapple with the witch's rules, like walking for hours only to loop back to the same spot. By night, unseen forces taunt them with childlike laughter and violent confrontations.
Oh my god, what the f*** is that? Dude, what the f*** is that?
Slowly, the group realizes they're lost and being stalked by an unknown presence, and that's when Josh vanishes into thin air. They eventually follow his voice to an abandoned house believed to belong to a hermit connected to the Blair Witch legend.
I hear you! Josh!
When they go into the basement, they find Josh staring blankly in the corner, and that's the last thing we see, seemingly the end. When the first movie came out, the internet was in its early days, but the producers saw an opportunity. Because the movie was improvised on video cameras, it was easy to believe that what viewers were seeing was real. So the marketing for the movie leaned into that, promoting the Blair Witch Project with missing person posters and a website detailing the disappearances. None of the actors took part in the movie's press tour, and the filmmakers actively misled the press into thinking they made the movie to try and draw attention to the investigation. In reality, nobody was ever missing, but it would take months before the truth came out. The movie's shaky camera work, raw performances, and ominous off-screen monsters were enough to terrify, disturb, and panic people. The Blair Witch Project grossed nearly $250 million worldwide on a modest budget. But it also kickstarted the biggest horror trend of the 21st century as a modern found-footage horror movie. Sinister. Set in a quiet Pennsylvania town, Sinister follows true crime author Ellison Oswald, who moves his family into a home where family was brutally hanged in their backyard, hoping to use the case as material for his next book. Desperate to revive his fading career, Ellison hides the house's grim history from his wife Tracy and their children Trevor and Ashley. In the attic, he discovers a box of Super 8 films labeled with innocuous titles like Pool Party 66 and Sleepy Time 98. These reels, however, reveal snuff footage of families in increasingly grotesque ways. Drownings, burnings, and a fatal encounter with a lawnmower, all orchestrated by the children themselves under the influence of a pagan deity, Bughuul. As Ellison obsessively analyzes the films, he notices Bughuul lurking in the background, a sinister-looking figure whose presence seeps into the Oswald's life through these films. Watching the films leads to his family suffering intense and increasingly horrifying supernatural encounters, with ghostly children stalking the house, Ashley painting creepy images, and Trevor's night terrors escalating to a terrifying degree. That's when Ellison starts to piece it together. Each of the murders follows a pattern. Each family lived in the house where the previous took place before becoming victims themselves. Despite burning the films and moving his family back to their old home, Ellison has unknowingly put them in danger. That's when we realize the found footage clips aren't the most disturbing part of the story. What truly makes Sinister so unsettling is how Bughuul manipulates children into slaughtering their families. The final reel, House Painting 12, reveals Ashley, who's now possessed, and axing her bound parents and brother.
Don't worry, Daddy. I'll make you famous again.
Her blood-smeared artwork completing Bughuul's ritual. The demon claims her, leaving only a new film reel in the attic, and continuing the cycle. Had Ellison never looked at the films, it's entirely possible that none of this would ever have happened. All of this is horrifying on its own, but the movie got a lot of comments about how the sound just made everything more terrifying. The soundtrack is mixed with white noise and distorted voices and whispers. Just enough that the audience is kept really unnerved in a way they can't quite work out, which, when coupled with the totally uncensored violence, makes for a really uncomfortable experience. A 2020 study measuring heart rates named Sinister the scariest film ever, thanks to its relentless tension and the visceral impact of the snuff film sequences. Level 2. The Taking of Deborah Logan. In The Taking of Deborah Logan, Deborah appears to be a frail, elderly woman battling Alzheimer's, living in her Virginia home with her daughter Sarah. A documentary crew led by graduate student Mia arrives to film her decline, hoping to shed light on the realities of the disease. At first, Deborah's lapses in memory and confusion seem typical, misplacing items, forgetting names, things like that. But soon, her behavior spirals into something far darker. She's caught on camera behaving in seriously weird, unnerving ways, whispering in French about sacrifices, and even attempting to abduct a young cancer patient, Kara. As the crew digs deeper, they uncover a horrifying secret. Decades earlier, Dr. Henri Desjardins, a physician, ritualistically killed 4 virgin girls in a bid for immortality. His 5th victim was to be Deborah's daughter, Sarah. To save her own child from that fate, Deborah tried everything, attempting and failing to kidnap a young cancer patient, Kara, and ultimately killed Dr. Desjardins. But Desjardins' spirit now possesses her, using her fading mind as a vessel to complete his 5th sacrifice and finish the ritual. Sarah, Mia, and cameraman Louis race to stop him and encounter one of the most disturbing images in a found-footage horror movie, Deborah attempting to swallow Kara's head in a snake-like way. Sarah manages to stop her mom, burning Desjardins' remains in a desperate bid to free Deborah. Even though they save Kara, the victory is hollow. Deborah's mind crumbles further, leaving her hospitalized and unable to stand trial for her actions. But the film ends with a haunting twist. Kara, now cancer-free, smiles at the camera during her birthday celebration, suggesting that Desjardins' spirit has shifted to possess her. What makes this movie so affecting is that it's not about monsters, ghosts, or something similar, but about the vulnerability of humanity. Alzheimer's and dementia strips humans of their free will and their own intelligence. And in this movie, that makes us vulnerable to being truly taken advantage of, transforming a helpless woman into a snake-like monster. While the supernatural elements deliver seriously good shocks, again, Deborah's jaw unhinging and devouring Kara's head is unforgettable, the film's true horror lies in that emotional rawness. It's as much a tragedy about loss as it is a nightmare about ancient evil. Unknown Visitor. It's only 52 minutes long, but Unknown Visitor packs a punch. This found footage experiment unfolds entirely through the lens of a doorbell camera. The story revolves around Annie, who recently moved into a new home and is grappling with sleep deprivation and a history of paranoia. Her friend Jeff installs a video doorbell to ease her fears, but it captures increasingly disturbing events. A knife salesman behaves weirdly, injuring himself and cursing at Annie. Weird poop handprints appear on the porch. And a frantic woman comes begging for help, claiming her daughter is in danger.
He's after me. He took my daughter, and now he wants to kill me. Please.
But the movie does not give any answers. Are these encounters supernatural, manifestations of Annie's mental illness, or a part of a gaslighting scheme by Jeff, who repeatedly dismisses her concerns as delusions? We don't know. And that is what makes this so unsettling, especially when Jeff gets more and more involved in what's going on. When the woman returns to seek help for her daughter, Jeff stabs her to death. He and Annie attempt to dispose of the body, but it keeps reappearing on the porch with no explanation. But there's a bigger twist implied in the movie. It's very subtly hinted that the mysterious woman who keeps coming back to scream for help with her daughter is actually Annie's mother, which means that the whole movie is Annie losing her mind and her mother trying to save her unsuccessfully. But Unknown Visitor is an extremely polarizing movie. Some audiences praise its inventive format and exploration of gaslighting, while others criticize its wooden acting and disjointed pacing. At 52 minutes, there's not much that can be done, but the movie does what it can do with that runtime. The Medium. Nothing is scarier than uncertainty, and that is exactly what The Medium feeds into. Set in the Asan region of Thailand, the movie follows a documentary crew as they film Nim, a revered shaman channeling the benevolent goddess Bayan, as she navigates her role in a community steeped in animist traditions. When her niece, Mink, begins exhibiting erratic behavior, including violent outbursts, nightmarish visions, and disturbing acts, Nim interprets it as Bayan choosing a new host. But Mink's behaviors grow more sinister. She becomes alcoholic, engages in inappropriate activities, and exhibits multiple personalities. As Mink's condition spirals, the family's dark history surfaces. Incestuous relationships, a lineage tainted by greed, and a failed ritual that unleashes a horde of vengeful spirits. The movie digs deep into the nature of generational curses, human evil, and the clash between traditional beliefs and modern skepticism. Can evil be repelled with traditional beliefs and religion, or is it simply part of our universe? These aren't easy questions to answer. The family tries all kinds of rituals to help Mink, but her condition just gets worse and worse. A final ritual intended to purge the demon instead triggers a massacre as possessed family members turn on each other in a frenzied, gore-soaked climax that is bloody as hell. Even Nim's faith shatters, questioning whether Bayan ever truly guided her.
ว่าย่ามาเข้าป่าจริงๆหรือเปล่า
The Medium is not just a horror film. It's a grim meditation on inherited trauma and the difficulty that comes with trying to fight against it. And much like trauma, don't even try to fight the urge to hit the subscribe button. Let's continue on. Level 3. Gonjiam, Haunted Asylum. Gonjiam Haunted Asylum begins with two boys disappearing while exploring room 402 of Gonjiam Psychiatric Hospital, a notoriously haunted and abandoned hospital. But the disappearance proves too good for some. Ha-Jun, the owner of Horror Times, a YouTube channel focusing on horror-themed haunted buildings, gathers 6 friends to help him pull off a live-streamed investigation of the asylum in hopes of hitting 1 million views. But as soon as the team enters the decaying building, they encounter increasingly disturbing paranormal phenomena. Initially, some of the scares are staged by Ha-Jun and his friends to try and boost viewership. But genuine supernatural events quickly start to occur. Doors slam, objects levitate, and ghostly figures manifest, leading them deeper and deeper into madness. Eventually, they reach room 402, rumored to be the center of the hospital's dark history. But when they finally get the door open, the situation spirals wildly out of control, with members of the group becoming possessed or disappearing entirely. Ha-Jun, obsessed with viewership metrics, ignores the escalating dangers to focus on the numbers. But after all of the team inexplicably disappear, Ha-Jun himself enters the asylum only to fall victim to the same supernatural forces. The film ends with a revelation that the livestream had failed completely, with only 503 viewers tuning in. Part of what makes the movie so utterly terrifying is the fact that we're literally in the shoes of the people experiencing it. The director forces us to take those long walks to the haunted rooms, never sure what is lurking around the dark corner. The movie was actually inspired by South Korea's real-life most haunted asylum and perfectly incorporates the increasingly relevant issue of streamers performing dangerous stunts for views. But while the character's quest for fame ends in tragedy, Gonjiam itself becomes a cultural phenomenon, ranking among the country's top horror movies. And the asylum itself also became a hotspot for tourism before its demolishing in 2018. Hell House LLC franchise. The franchise is built around the Abaddon Hotel, a decaying structure in Rockland County, New York, built by Andrew Tully. The first film follows a group of Halloween haunted house creators who set up their attraction, Hell House, inside the abandoned hotel. But on opening night, A tragic incident results in the death of 15 people, including staff members. What makes Hell House LLC uniquely disturbing as a franchise is its intricate mythology and backstory. The franchise delves into the hotel's dark history, including its original owner, Andrew Tully, rumored to be a cult leader involved in satanic worship. Each subsequent film in the franchise expands on the lore, introducing new characters and revealing more about the hotel's sinister past. Clown mannequins move on their own, shadowy cultists materialize during strobe tests, and staff members are violently possessed, culminating in a massacre orchestrated by Tully's lingering spirit. Because, as it turns out, Tully's hotel had already been linked to disappearances way back in the 1980s, including a mother and child. The universe just keeps expanding, offering up more and more disturbing revelations that remind us how dangerous this building is. While later sequels drew criticism for over-explaining the lore, the original Hell House LLC remains a benchmark in the franchise, thanks to its many haunting, unanswered questions. Ultimately, the franchise taps into a primal fear. Some places are irrevocably tainted by evil, waiting to ensnare the curious and the reckless alike. The Possession of Michael King. The Possession of Michael King follows documentary filmmaker Michael King, an avowed atheist grappling with the sudden death of his wife Samantha. Her fatal accident occurs after a psychic advises her to stay home rather than accompany Michael on a trip, which turns out to be a decision he blames for her demise. Consumed by grief and skepticism, Michael embarks on a reckless mission to disprove the supernatural, offering himself as a test subject for demonic rituals and occult practices. He places an advertisement online inviting practitioners of the dark arts to perform their most potent ceremonies on him. Over the course of the movie, he collaborates with self-proclaimed Satanists, necromancers, and fringe spiritualists, undergoing LSD-fueled ceremonies, DMT-induced trances, and attempts to channel spirits in graveyards. Initially, he feels vindicated. Nothing has happened. He was right. But then he starts to experience unexplained phenomena, a persistent static noise in his head, violent outbursts captured on distorted footage, and an inability to control his body. As the entity tightens its grip, he carves a pentagram into his chest, his sister Beth, and nearly attacks his young daughter Ellie before regaining momentary clarity. In a final act of defiance, he leaps from a window to his death, escaping eternal torment. The movie wasn't super well received when it came out, polarizing audiences with its graphic content and nihilistic tone, but some people loved it and its unapologetic exploration of grief, weaponized by supernatural forces. Afflicted. Afflicted follows best friends Derek and Cliff, who set out to film a globe-trotting adventure after Derek receives a diagnosis for a potentially fatal brain aneurysm. He sees this as his final chance to fully experience life. But when they reach Paris, Derek meets a woman named Audrey and hooks up with her. The next morning, his friends find him beaten and bloodied in his hotel room. As they continue their trip, Derek begins to exhibit strange symptoms: extreme sensitivity to sunlight, inability to eat, and superhuman strength and speed. That sums up this movie perfectly. What begins as a buddy comedy with jokes about girls and bucket list escapism quickly mutates into a visceral body horror as Derek's body rebels against him. Sunlight scorches his skin, his meals erupt in violent vomit, and stone walls crumble under his newfound strength. Cliff eventually realizes that Derek has become a vampire. They try various methods to satisfy Derek's new craving for blood, including feeding him animal blood and trying to rob an ambulance, but all of them fail. Derek's condition worsens until he erupts in a violent incident where he accidentally kills Cliff. Desperate for answers, Derek searches for Audrey, the woman who turned him in the first place. Through her, he discovers that vampirism is incurable and that he must feed on human blood every few days to maintain his humanity.
You must eat. Your body will not let you starve.
Audrey reveals she chose Derek because of his terminal condition, believing she was being merciful. Now, he gets to live forever, but he can never truly connect with anyone. Derek does eventually accept his fate, choosing to survive by targeting deserving victims like him. This ending sees the movie asking the audience if survival justifies brutality. The finale offers no answers and no relief. Only a reminder that in the real world, anyone could become the monster. Megan is Missing. Megan is Missing centers on two 14-year-old friends. Megan Stewart, a popular yet troubled teen grappling with familial neglect and risky online behavior, and Amy Herman, her withdrawn best friend who documents their lives through video diaries. But then, Megan disappears without a trace. The narrative unfolds through webcam chats, news clips, and recovered footage chronicling Megan's disappearance. Megan had befriended Josh, a boy she met online who claimed to be 17 years old, but despite red flags and contradictions in Josh's story, Megan becomes infatuated with him and agrees to meet him behind a diner.
Hello, hot chick.
Hi, skater dude.
My name's Josh.
I know.
But on January 17th, Megan disappears, with the last footage of her showing an older man grabbing her wrist outside the diner. Amy, concerned for her friend, begins investigating Megan's disappearance and communicates with Josh directly online, only to be threatened when he realizes she suspects him.
You don't know anything about me. You don't know who I am.
I know exactly who you are, Amy.
Suddenly, images of Megan appear on online forums, showing her being in an extremely dark, sinister fate. As for Amy, she's abducted while recording one of her video diaries, having clearly discovered far too much about what happened. The movie doesn't shy away from showing Amy's fate, an extended 3-minute scene of sexual abuse followed by her burial alive alongside Megan's decomposing body in a plastic barrel. The movie has no intentions of showing any graphic gore, but the content immediately provoked massive amounts of controversy, with people accusing the movie of exploiting the subject and victims of catfishing and abuse. However, the filmmakers wanted to do the exact opposite. The whole reason they made the movie in the first place was to raise awareness of online safety and the dangers of internet predators, and the movie definitely does that. Leaving DC. Moving cities is never an easy experience, but leaving DC captures the terror of it in a way nobody could have expected. The story follows Mark Klein, who moves from Washington, D.C. to a remote house in West Virginia to escape city life. Mark, a member of an OCD support group, records video diaries to stay connected with his friends back home. But shortly after moving in, Mark discovers weird and extremely unsettling things happening around his new home. He finds a cat's skull nailed to a tree and begins hearing strange noises at night, particularly around 3:10 a.m. Determined to uncover the source, Mark sets up audio recorders and trail cameras, capturing eerie sounds like someone talking and inexplicable flute music.
That sounds like a person. It's like they're saying, like, why, or...
Yet he can find no explanation for any of it. As the paranormal activity intensifies, Mark learns about the property's dark history, including a previous owner's and a girl's disappearance from the area.
Came to the house to find him from a tree. And the daughter? Still missing. Presumed to have wandered into the woods and died.
Yet no matter how much he tries, his attempts to seek help from the police and supernatural forums prove totally useless. Mark's mental state deteriorates as he combines alcohol with his medication and becomes increasingly isolated from everyone, including his friends. In the climactic finale, Mark confronts the entity outside his home at 2:30 a.m.
Almost 2:30 in the morning, and big surprise, someone's playing a flute.
The audience hears his terrified screams and gunshots before the camera mysteriously lifts, suggesting a supernatural force has taken over. One that we never actually see. The film ends abruptly, leaving the viewer to contemplate Mark's fate and the true nature of the malevolent presence in the woods. The thing that escalates Leaving DC from a simple found-footage horror movie to a truly disturbing experience is its exploration of self-deception. It doesn't matter how hard he tries to convince the world, nothing is fine. He mixes alcohol with medication, lashes out at his friends, and provokes the unknown, only to pay the price for all of it. Level 4. The Bay. The Bay unfolds as a fractured documentary-style horror, piecing together suppressed footage of a 2009 ecological disaster in the fictional town of Claridge, Maryland. The film begins with Donna Thompson, a rookie reporter covering the town's 4th of July celebration. But as the party gets started, residents start exhibiting severe symptoms, including violent illness and disgusting-looking lesions. The local hospital is quickly overwhelmed, and the Center for Disease Control is contacted to send help immediately. But they can't do much about it. The cause of the outbreak is revealed to be mutated isopods, which have evolved due to pollution in the Chesapeake Bay.
This is called an isopod.
These parasites, affected by chicken poop, steroids, and nuclear waste dumped into the water, grow to massive sizes and start attacking humans, eating them from the inside out. This is where the movie starts to use all of its different media sources. We discover that 2 oceanographers discovered the threat months earlier and were killed by the isopods. A family sailing to Claridge became unwittingly caught in the disaster. Suddenly, local law enforcement struggles to maintain order as the situation worsens, and people start to in horrific, deeply traumatizing ways. And under all of it, government authorities refused to send help and later claimed the incident was due to unusually high water temperatures to cover up their own ruthlessness. The outbreak is eventually contained by filling the bay with chlorine, but 40% of it remains lifeless. The movie originally was supposed to be an actual documentary about the pollution issues facing the Chesapeake Bay, but the director Barry Levinson was so disturbed by what he found that he thought a horror movie would convey the issue more effectively. The majority of information about the lake's pollution issues in the movie are based in fact. And while there are no isopods in the real-life bay, the future of it isn't looking much better. Skinamarink. Skinamarink is not your typical found-footage horror movie. It doesn't rely on jump scares or even coherent storytelling. It's an experience in nightmares. The movie is set in 1995 and follows 4-year-old Kevin and his 6-year-old sister Kaylee, who wake up in the middle of the night to find their father missing and their house transformed into a weird, nightmarish prison.
Dad?
The windows and doors have vanished, leaving them with no clear way out. As they seek comfort in watching cartoons, strange things start to occur. Furniture appears on the ceiling, toys float, and a sinister voice beckons them from the darkness where they see increasingly weird and disturbing things.
Your father.
As the entity's presence grows stronger, it demands increasingly horrific acts from the children, eventually ripping Kaylee's eyes and mouth from her head in retaliation for her disobedience. At the end of the movie, Kevin is left alone facing the malevolent force that now controls their home. The movie is designed as an experience. The story is open to interpretation and extremely vague. Some have said that it's a movie about childhood trauma or abuse. Others believe it's a deconstruction of fear itself. But the movie is built to thrive on atmosphere. The grainy, low-resolution visuals coupled with the lack of dialogue and the ambient noises just create this deep-rooted unease, exactly like the kind you'd feel in a nightmare. Everything is somehow familiar and yet just slightly off. When the movie came out, many people claimed to have been traumatized by the movie, yet couldn't find the words to explain why. It's an entirely unique movie, and while not everybody will love it, it's definitely got to be praised for doing some weird stuff. August Underground. August Underground opens with a grainy, shaky video of two men descending into a basement where a naked woman is bound to a chair, gagged, and smeared with blood and filth. That's just about the most fitting introduction to this truly disturbing, messed up movie. The film follows serial killer Peter and his unseen accomplice as they document their crimes in unflinching detail. The home video captures their escalating brutality. Captives assaulting and hitchhikers and slaughtering a tattoo artist and his twin brother with a hammer. Between the pair ride through roadside America, having a great time while they kill and traumatize everyone they encounter. There's no plot to speak of in this movie, and that's what makes it so deeply disturbing to even try and watch. The movie focuses on the violence and the oddly normal behavior of between their violent acts. It creates this uneasy atmosphere where you're never fully sure how to interpret these two psychopaths. They commit horrific acts, yet they're pretty casual people. The highly realistic portrayal of violence mixed with the extreme content and found footage aesthetics have left people saying that the movie, along with its two sequels, is the most disturbing thing they have ever seen. Be My Cat. The movie follows an aspiring Romanian filmmaker, Adrian, who's obsessed with Hollywood actress Anne Hathaway. He wants to convince her to star in his movie, so he recruits 3 local actresses to shoot demo scenes for Anne. But as the filming progresses, the line between reality and fiction blurs, revealing Adrian's increasingly unhinged behavior.
Now that I'm playing right now, it is obsessed by this actress. I already told you, and now he has this actress.
The first actress, Sonia, is subjected to a frustrating acting exercise that escalates into a full-on abduction. Adrian uses real chloroform on her and dresses her in a cat suit while she's unconscious, claiming that he needs to create an authentic performance.
I had the real chloroform.
Frustrated by her refusal to cooperate, Adrian tells her she needs to be sacrificed for her art, and hiding her body in the basement. The second actress, Flory, is berated for her appearance and ultimately becomes a victim of Adrian's twisted vision, while the third actress, Alexandra, discovers the horrifying truth and tries to reason with Adrian. Of course, it's not going to work. Throughout the movie, we get glimpses of just how broken Adrian truly is inside, including the reveal that in his childhood, he accidentally killed his pet cat. Later in his life, when he saw Anne Hathaway play Catwoman in The Dark Knight Rises, he became obsessed with cats and determined to win her over to his movie. The truly horrifying thing about this movie is how plausible it all is. Adrian's giggling monologues address Anne Hathaway directly, weaving a parasocial delusion that justifies his atrocities as romantic gestures for someone who doesn't even know he exists. He's cheerful while committing these horrific acts, which is only amplified by the found footage, which forces us to be trapped inside his warped perspective. Lake Mungo. Lake Mungo begins as a straightforward mockumentary about grief. The Palmer family are grappling with the tragic drowning of their 16-year-old daughter Alice in a dam near Ararat. But after Alice's funeral, the family experiences strange occurrences in their home. Security cameras capture shadowy figures, photos reveal spectral blurs, and Matthew starts finding weird bruises on his body. They decide to get professionals to investigate what's going on. But as the investigation deepens, dark secrets from Alice's life emerge. A hidden videotape reveals her involvement in a sexual encounter with neighbors she was babysitting for. It's also discovered that Alice had consulted a psychic, Ray Kameni, months before her death, describing recurring dreams of drowning and being unable to communicate with her mother. But then Alice's boyfriend shares footage from a school trip to Lake Mungo showing Alice burying something by a tree. The family travels to the lake and uncovers Alice's phone, which contains chilling footage of her encountering a ghostly corpse-like doppelganger of herself, an image eerily similar to how her body would later be found. Somehow, she filmed her own death. This revelation leads the family to believe that Alice had predicted her own death and wanted them to understand her true self and experiences, but the whole ordeal becomes so traumatic that the family eventually moves out of their house entirely, convinced that everything they've experienced has been fake. A belief that is supported by Alice's brother confessing he faked some of the photos. In the final scene, we see Alice's ghost confirming that she was there all along, lurking just outside of frame, unnoticed until the end, watching her family from the shadows. Long Pigs. Long Pigs is a strange creation, a mockumentary-style horror film that follows two aspiring filmmakers documenting Tony, a charismatic serial killer who treats as a culinary art. Initially, the filmmakers are terrified of Tony, but they gradually become accustomed to Tony's presence and even start to identify with his ecological and philosophical justifications for. He believes that humanity is hypocritical when it comes to eating meat. We eat animals, yet draw the line at humans. Unlike typical slasher villains, Tony is unsettlingly normal. The documentary captures Tony's process of selecting victims, mostly prostitutes, and preparing human flesh for consumption. In a disturbing turn of events, one of the filmmakers even tries the human meat Anthony prepares. But as the documentary progresses, tensions rise between Tony and the filmmakers. They start to question the consistency of Tony's stories and confront him about his ever-changing philosophies and his inability to fully articulate his goals. Tony eventually begins to realize just how much of his life he's revealed to the filmmakers, culminating in a final, deadly confrontation that ends in violence, with only the footage left behind. The movie begins with a pretty clear black and white moral approach. The killer is bad, and the filmmakers are simply documenting it. But as the movie progresses, it becomes more and more clear that the filmmakers are not as innocent as they appear to be. They're profiting from Tony's crimes, engaging with said crimes, and even starting to sympathize with him. The filmmakers, as well as the audience, are complicit in the crimes, wanting to know more and more about the killer. It's no different to true crime or any other form of media that exploits tragedy and for profit. Only this movie is willing to confront the audience with their own part in this cycle. Level 5. Butterfly Kisses. Butterfly Kisses is a unique approach to the found footage genre. While the other movies approach it as though we're just watching the footage, this movie deconstructs the genre through 3 interconnected storylines. In 2004, 2 film students, Sophia and Feldman, attempt to document the urban legend of Peeping Tom, a supernatural entity summoned by staring into the Ilchester Tunnel for an hour without blinking. They discover a loophole by using a camera as a proxy for human eyes, inadvertently summoning Peeping Tom, who begins stalking them through the footage. In 2015, a struggling wedding videographer, Gavin York, discovers Sophia and Feldman's tapes in his in-law's basement. Seeing an opportunity for success, he hires a documentary crew to follow his investigation into the tape's authenticity. That documentary crew, led by filmmaker Eric Christopher Myers, who is also the movie's director, becomes increasingly skeptical of Gavin's claims as they fail to find evidence of Sophia and Feldman's existence. As Gavin's obsession with proving the footage real grows, his mental state deteriorates, and his relationships suffer. He exhausts his finances, strains his marriage, and faces public ridicule when he shares the footage online. It's all one big hall of mirrors, with each layer of the movie exploring the nature of obsession, blurring the lines between fact and fiction. The characters have no idea what's real and what's fake, and neither do we as the audience. The movie was so successful at selling the Peeping Tom legend that an author wrote about it in her book as an actual local legend in Maryland. When the director reached out to her to explain he made the whole thing up, he was shocked to discover she wasn't mad at all. She thought he was brilliant. Descent into Darkness, My European Nightmare. Descent into Darkness, My European Nightmare begins as a found-footage travelogue with an Eastern European journalist named Sergei Prakov arriving in Paris to make a documentary about the European dream. His initial experiences in the City of Love are anything a tourist could hope for. Tourist landmarks, French cuisine, and fleeting friendships. On a night out with his new friends, Sergei takes drugs and gets extremely high. He loses his credit cards, gets beaten up, and burns his passport in a reckless act of drunkenness. But then the movie takes a hard right turn into a terrifying new direction. What started as a Borat-style lighthearted travel story becomes a serial nightmare. He evolves from a sympathetic figure to a feral predator, attacking strangers in their homes, a woman in darkness, and a family in an extremely disturbing sequence that culminates in... If you just happen to watch the movie without knowing what it's about, there's no way you could possibly predict where it was going, which just makes it even more horrifying when the movie refuses to look away from his moral erosion. At no point does the story attempt to justify or even explain why he's suddenly so violent and murderous. But even worse, the whole point of the movie is to make you underestimate and even like this man, only to reveal he is so much more deranged and sinister than you ever could have expected. And in reality, you could have encountered someone just like this, an innocent-seeming man with a dark, horrifying secret. Level 6. Noroi, the Curse. Set in modern-day Japan, Noroi the Curse follows paranormal investigator Masafumi Kobayashi as he documents eerie phenomena for a documentary film titled The Curse. But his focus soon shifts to Junko Ishii, a reclusive woman whose home seems to be haunted by the sounds of crying babies and the sights of pigeons, and Kanayano, a psychic girl who vanishes under mysterious circumstances. As Kobayashi digs deeper, he uncovers threads connecting these events to Kagutaba, an ancient demonic entity once contained by rituals performed in the now demolished village of Shimokage. Before long, an actress taking part in the project begins sleep-nodding ritualistic loops and accidentally witnesses her neighbor's death. Realizing the demon is back and very active, Kobayashi's team attempts to pacify Kagutaba at a dam site, only to trigger a chain of possessions and deaths. The final act reveals Junko's gruesome role in all this. She was using aborted fetuses to resurrect Kagutaba through Kana. In the final moments of the movie, Kobayashi's cameraman captures his possessed wife's death by setting herself on fire and the demon's manifestation in the form of a young boy. The movie is presented as a pseudo-documentary, an eerie true crime movie. There are no jump scares, only the slow-building dread of something very, very unsettling. The pigeons as death omens, sleepwalking rituals, and abrupt text captions like, "They died 3 days later," all suggest something is off. When the movie was released in 2005, it became an instant cult classic thanks to its brutal, nihilistic ending and unresolved horror threads. Kobayashi's fate remains unknown, implying that the curse will loop endlessly. A major contrast to the kind of happy and resolved endings you see in Hollywood horror movies. Hate Crime. In 2012, director James Cullen Bressick released Hate Crime, a found-footage horror that is as far from ghosts and spirits as you could hope to get. Instead, it's a plunge into visceral, disturbingly real horror that explores the bleakest extremes of real-world hate. The film opens with a Jewish family celebrating their youngest son's birthday, a moment captured on a video camera, before their home is suddenly stormed by meth-fueled neo. What follows isn't a narrative, but a relentless onslaught of forced and murder, all filmed through the invader's shaky, chaotic lens. Part of what makes hate crimes so disturbing is that we don't really know this family at all. They're new to the neighborhood and they're instantly forced to endure brutal It's like they exist only to suffer and be attacked, and the brutality is played out without cuts, forcing viewers to endure the violence as passive, horrified witnesses. In 2012, the British Board of Film Classification banned the movie outright, saying that its focus on racial hatred and abuse was inconsistent with public safety. Just 1 year earlier, it had revised its laws to allow them to rate streaming movies, making hate crime the very first movie to be banned under the new laws. But Bresek took this as a badge of honor, saying he was proud that his work was deemed too twisted for release, which is pretty much how it was received in the horror scene. Some critics dismissed the movie outright, saying it was nothing but a desperate attempt at shock value, but its defenders and fans argue that the movie actually says something about real bigotry and hate. But the overwhelmingly depressing and brutal violence makes it difficult for many to understand or admire the commentary. Incantation. Incantation isn't your typical horror film. It doesn't just tell a story, it welcomes the viewer in and implicates them in the nightmare that is about to unfold. The film opens with a woman named Lee Ronan who pleads with the audience to memorize a cryptic symbol and chant a blessing to save her 6-year-old daughter from a devastating curse. What follows is a twisted tale of maternal desperation inspired by a real-life 2005 case where a Kaohsiung family descended into violent delusions of demonic possession. It turns out that the curse on the young girl stems from Ronan's trespass into a forbidden tunnel 6 years earlier. She disrupted a ritual worshipping Mother Buddha, a malevolent deity masquerading as a benevolent figure. As Ronan fights to shield her daughter, the film fractures into the fragmented footage from her camera. The movie isn't presented chronologically, but a series of clips from the footage they recorded for their online video channel. But it's when you get to the end of the movie that you realize the movie's masterstroke. It's interactive. That opening chant Lee Ronan gets the audience to recite is a trap. By the end of the movie, it's revealed that the chant does not convey blessing, but dilutes the curse, spreading it out to those who utter it.
如果我可以让更多人看到这个事情跟这个符号，也许就可以多帮他分担一些。
She turns the camera on Mother Buddha herself, intending to curse the viewers of the movie to save her daughter. Suddenly, the audience is hit with the realization that they're not passively watching the movie, we're literally part of it. Level 7. VHS Franchise. Each film in the VHS franchise follows a similar structure. A framing story involves characters discovering a collection of VHS tapes, and as they watch each tape, the audience is presented with various horror shorts. These segments cover a wide range of horror subgenres, from supernatural encounters to alien abductions and cult activities. Safe Haven from VHS 2, directed by Timo Tjahjanto, is widely regarded as one of the best. The story follows a documentary crew infiltrating an Indonesian cult compound to interview its leader, known as Father. As the crew sets up their equipment and the interview progresses, Father makes an announcement triggering a mass suicide among the cultists. The situation rapidly descends into chaos as the crew tries to escape for survival, but one crew member, Lena, is captured and taken to a ritual chamber. The segment climaxes with the birth of a demonic entity resembling Baphomet, which violently tears its way out of Lena's body. The surviving crew member, Adam, flees through hordes of reanimated cultists only to be confronted by the demon which calls him Papa. It's a horrifying sequence and is one of the most praised, with people celebrating the intense pacing, shocking imagery, an effective blend of found footage horror with apocalyptic themes. Another highly praised segment is 10/31/98 from the original VHS, directed by Radio Silence. Set on Halloween 1998, it follows 4 friends dressed in costumes who accidentally enter an abandoned house, mistaking it for a party location. Initially, they believe the weird occurrences inside are part of a haunted house attraction, but they soon discover a group of men performing what appears to be an exorcism on a woman suspended from the rafters.
Cast him down! Cast him down! Who are they, Father? Cast! What are you doing here?
The friends attempt to rescue the woman, leading to a chaotic escape filled with undeniable and intense paranormal activity. As they flee in their car with the woman, they realize she is actually a witch who tricked them the whole time. The segment concludes with the group trapped in their car on train tracks, unable to escape as a train approaches. But of course, controversies are still inevitable. Reviewers condemned segments like VHS 99's Bid, where sorority hazing spirals into supernatural, calling it disgusting and pointlessly mean. The franchise's reliance on shock value, whether through gore, nihilism, or taboo themes, polarizes audiences, but it's undeniably scary. Holocaust. In 1980, an Italian exploitation horror called Holocaust was released and instantly burned its way into the Horror Hall of Fame. The movie follows anthropologist Harold Monroe's journey into the Amazon to uncover the fate of a missing documentary crew. The recovered footage reveals the crew's descent into sadism, staging atrocities against indigenous tribes, burning villages, and committing violence before being brutally by the tribes they provoked. Holocaust was arguably the first found footage movie ever to be made. And that pioneering found footage style left audiences totally convinced that they had just witnessed something truly horrific, which is exactly what the director Ruggero Deodato wanted. To amplify the illusion, he ordered his actors to disappear from public view for a year, hoping to fuel the rumors of a snuff film. It worked, of course, but it worked too well. The authorities tracked down and arrested Deodato on suspicion of murder, forcing him to prove in court that the grisly deaths in the movie were staged. One iconic scene in particular was considered an almost certain murder, involving a woman on a stake. To clear his name, Deodato had to go into his trial and demonstrate his highly convincing illusion using a bicycle seat and a wooden prop. Sure enough, he hadn't murdered anybody. Well, anybody human. The movie became notorious for real animals. A lot. A giant turtle was and dismembered on camera, while monkeys, a pig, and a snake were slaughtered for authenticity. The controversy became so intense that the whole world became aware of this extremely intense, disturbing movie. Critics condemned the film's graphic violence, assault depictions, and exploitation of indigenous actors, including a 14-year-old girl in a traumatic rape scene. The outrage was so intense that it led to bans in over 50 countries. But all of the controversy could not take away the fact that Holocaust revolutionized horror, inspiring found footage classics like The Blair Witch Project. Even today, this movie is a twisted landmark in cinema history, hated and loved in equal measure. The Guinea Pig. To understand the Guinea Pig series, you need to step into Japan's underground horror scene of the 1980s. Throughout the 70s, Japanese filmmakers were in love with slasher movies, not unlike Americans. But the 1980s allowed filmmakers to delve into much more psychological, atmospheric, and straight-up weird filmmaking. They were testing how far audiences could stomach entertainment, and The Guinea Pig took it to a new extreme. The idea for the first movie, Devil's Experiment, came from manga artist Hideshi Hino. The movie was presented as a snuff film depicting the prolonged torture of a woman through beatings, sound effects, and grotesque, all things Japanese cinema had not seen up to this point. But it was the first sequel, Flower of Flesh and Blood, that pushed the series into infamy. Directed by Hino, the film follows a samurai masked who drugs, dismembers, and preserves a woman's body parts as art. The violence was so visceral, so widely known, that it even reached Hollywood. In 1991, Charlie Sheen obtained a copy of the movie, and he wholeheartedly fell for it, believing he had found a snuff film. He was so convinced he witnessed an actual murder that he alerted the FBI immediately. FBI agents confiscated the tape, launching an investigation that only ended when Hino proved the effects were staged, using puppets, prosthetics, and corn syrup blood. That single incident sent this tiny little Japanese series of films into a whole new territory. But reality bled into fiction elsewhere. The serial killer Tsutomu Miyazaki, Japan's otaku, allegedly owned one of the 6 guinea pig films. Authorities instantly blamed the movies for inspiring his crimes, leading Japan to pull copies from shelves, while overseas, fans started trading bootlegs like contraband. Ultimately, what makes Guinea Pig endure isn't just the gore, although that's part of it, it's the commitment to the illusion. Today, we know these are movies, but in the 1980s and 90s, before the internet, nobody knew. These weren't stories, they were experiences designed to make you question what was or wasn't real. If you feel sick, that's the point.